Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Board of Selectmen special meeting, Wednesday, May 29th at 5 o'clock. And the first item on our agenda this evening is to acknowledge receipt of a request from the Woodbridge Board of Education for a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $289,000. And you have in your packet a copy of that request from Margaret Hamilton, Chair, who's with us this evening. Thanks for joining us, Margaret. Respectfully requesting a supplemental appropriation not to exceed $289,000. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Weiner, Town Council, to go over just the process we're going to go through.
So the Board of Finance is here, Matt. Well, you can open your meeting, your special meeting of the Board of Selectmen. You declare it open? Yes. Okay.
I'll declare the Board of Finance meeting open.
Okay. So we have two separate meetings, one of the Board of Finance, one of the Board of Selectmen, because the charter is intermeshed with each taking some action. So the first action that needs to occur is that the Board of Selectmen has acknowledged receipt of the request that was dated May 21st from the Board of Education seeking a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $289,000. Now, the Board of Selectmen can discuss that request for the supplemental appropriation now and then take a vote on whether it should be approved or not. If it is approved, then it goes back to the Board of Finance, who then takes their own vote on whether they want to approve it as well. And if they approve it, then they come back to the Board of Selectmen and ask the Board of Selectmen to schedule a special town meeting to make the determination whether the Board of Education's request should be approved. And we need a special town meeting because the amount of the supplemental appropriation request is more than $50,000 or 0.15% of the entire town budget for the fiscal year. So it's over the threshold. You know, the Board of Finance has the authority to act on any requests below that threshold, but because we're over it, it has to be done by a special town meeting. So I think the first thing to do is for the Board of Finance now to, the Board of Selectmen to decide to discuss the issue of the request. And if approved, then forward it to the Board of Finance for action.
So in order to open the discussion, I'm going to make a motion
Yes.
that we approve the supplemental appropriation from the Board of Education not to exceed $289,000. Anything else I need in that?
No, that's...
Okay. Is there a second? Thank you, Jill. Okay. Now I'll open up the meeting for discussion of the Board of Selectmen.
So I have a question for Tony. Do you have a breakdown of this? The reason I ask, it says, respectfully request a supplemental appropriation for unanticipated special education as well as building HVAC-related expenditures. Now, I know we had a shortfall of about $300,000, which was special education, and it was also additional enrollment. So does this cover both of these or just special ed?
It covers both.
It does, okay.
Yes, covers the special ed and items related to the facility,
Okay.
the facility issues. Yeah.
And how much of that is facility? Because there were a couple of pieces of it.
How much?
147.
147 is for the facility, and then the remainder is special ed.
And then there's some underspending in other areas that lowered it to what it is.
Bob, you might have to come up to the microphone because Bill can't hear you. I'm sorry. You want to maybe say it again for the benefit of the TV audience?
It's on a red's on, right? So my notes here are 147K of the building-related items from the cleanups in the two different time periods, as well as the study from Van Zelm and other related costs. So that was 147, and then special education would be the remainder. Actually, there was some underspending as well that we've had this year, and we're still planning on releasing some encumbrances as the last weeks dwindle down, and we know what we can release. But
Well, special ed was about 129.
well, no, special ed was actually over 200, but yes, but because of the underspending in some of the other areas, that was able to bring our overall numbers down lower than they might have been.
And what about the funding for the additional enrollment of regular education?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Meaning?
There's nothing in there for the additional enrollment.
There's nothing in there, so how are we paying that?
Well, we didn't add a staff member after the budget. I mean, with the increasing enrollment, we didn't overspend in the regular budget.
Right, meaning during the course of the current year that we're still in, FY19, even though enrollment, you've heard about me talking about enrollment being up higher than we anticipated, we didn't add any staff during the course of the year that would have created any kind of other deficit
I
related to
seem
that.
to remember a deficit of like 302,000.
It was 302 and it's dropped to 289.
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
now
yes,
I'm clear.
that's
Thank
correct.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yep,
Yep.
I got it. Okay.
Any other comments from the Board of Selectmen?
Just for clarification purposes, this has been, we've had discussions on this throughout
We
the
have.
budget process, and we
That's
expected it, and this is basically to just complete the process.
That's correct.
Thank you.
This money's coming from the Amity surplus?
That's correct. There's 50,000 of it that was in a reserve last year that was set up.
Right.
The remainder is
Special
from
ed.
the Amity surplus, correct.
Which money goes into the unencumbered general fund balance.
Right.
And that's where it ultimately comes from.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I will call the question. All in favor? Aye. That's it. There's only 4 of us here tonight.
So
Okay,
that's good.
it's unanimous. Thank you.
So then the Board of Selectmen now forwards its request, its approval, and Beth in writing, and Beth is signing the documents. That it goes to the Board of Finance, and then the Board of Finance opens up its meeting with a motion to approve the Board of Education request and the action of the Board of Selectmen approving the request.
Sure. Okay, so I'll acknowledge receipt of the Board of Education, Woodbridge Board of Education request from the Board of Selectmen with the Board of Selectmen approval. I would now like to make a motion that we approve supplemental appropriation 1819-34 in the amount of $289,000.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, Board of Finance members?
So my understanding is that it's up to 289,000. Is that correct? So that is the limit.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, that it may actually be lower than that.
Right, right. But whether it's set 289, it's but yes, could be lower.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's up to. I mean,
Right.
we've done that many times
We have,
before. So.
And if we approve this, Tony, where does that put our fund balance?
It's coming from the Amity surplus funds.
Okay,
So that leaves the surplus funds at about 100, a little over 100,000 remaining.
No, he's talking about the fund balance, right?
Is that what you're
well,
wondering?
I thought this was coming out of the fund balance, that's what I
Well,
understood.
it's from the Amity money which goes into the fund balance.
Oh, I see.
The remainder.
If you
So we have that much less to put into the fund balance?
Correct,
Yes.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Right.
Right.
All right.
If you hadn't acted on this, it would go in the fund balance, so
Okay.
it's technically part of fund balance.
Doesn't affect what the fund balance number was before this meeting.
Right, right,
Okay.
right.
And I guess, and we had met and discussed 160,000 for HVAC, correct? A couple months
About
back.
150, yeah.
This is
Yeah, 140.
140, was it?
Yeah.
40s, yeah.
Okay, now this is to kind of finish that off?
What's that? This one we're doing tonight?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
some
the
of this money will pay off.
147,
Right.
That pays, 147 pays off a study that was done, an engineering study, but also some cleanup costs, other related costs.
so that should finish all that?
No, there's some money in the capital budget for next year to finish it.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? Aye?
So now Matt signs the written request. He did, all right, that's
Yep,
good.
well
So
done.
then the Board of Finance now has to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to schedule a special town meeting to approve the supplemental appropriation.
Okay, so the Board of Finance hereby requests that the Board of Selectmen schedule a special town meeting pursuant to section 6-3C3 and 6-3D2.
Second?
Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye? Okay. I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye?
The Board of
Aye.
Selectmen needs to stay for another minute, so now
Right.
we're
We have
back to
two
the.
more
the
items
Board
on
of-
our agenda.
Yeah, the Board of Selectmen now has to actually consider the request for the special town meeting. That is mandatory once the Board of Finance request that you set a scheduled special town meeting. The Board of Selectmen has to have a special town meeting, but I would suggest that somebody make a motion and you approve the request for the special town meeting
Okay.
on June 10th.
Okay. So wait a minute, I have to make a motion to
Yes.
accept the request first?
You make a
or-
motion that a special town meeting will hereby be called
Okay,
to approve the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $289,000 for June 10th at 7 o'clock.
what he said.
That's the motion.
Okay, is there a second? Thank you, Joe. Okay, any discussion on that for June 10th, special town meeting? All in favor? Okay, thank you. Bye, guys.
And we'll give a copy of the written requests and the approvals to the Board of Education for their files. So I think we're done.
Okay, you guys could take off if you want to hang out. You can take off, okay. Thank you, thank you, guys. Thank you, okay.
You're going to have plenty of time here. You're going to have plenty of time here later on.
Yeah, just feel free to go down. Okay, thanks, guys.
Oh, wait, the Board of Education has to, Board of Selectmen have to sign the call of the meeting.
Yeah, we're still working on the Board of Selectmen agenda.
Okay, but they don't go anyplace.
Yeah, Board of Selectmen do not leave till you sign this.
Oh, that was what that thing in the packet is, yeah.
Can we pass it around now?
Pass it around. Jerry, you wanna
Yep,
pass it
you
around?
can pass around right now.
Okay, so we can resume? We just sort of took a recess, okay. Item 5 on our agenda is receive report from the Personnel Committee regarding the Fire Department Office Manager position, and action is appropriate, and I'll turn it over to Tony, Head of Personnel.
Okay.
And I will acknowledge Fire Chief Rowland is in the audience if you have any questions.
There you go.
You might want to step up to the mic just in case.
And here's the-
Thank you.
So, thank you, Beth. The fire department had a vacancy in their department of the office, in their office position. It was formerly a clerical position. The position was upgraded to a office manager position based on the responsibilities of that position as they've evolved over the years. And being a largely volunteer organization with part-time chief and fire marshal, and it's very important to have a qualified person in that position who can basically keep the operation going. Is that correct, Chief?
Yep.
Yeah. So we went out for advertised for the position and probably received got to be a few hundred applications at least.
I think like 150.
Yeah, 150. So after a lot of review and interviews, the unanimous selection of the committee was Christine Della Valle, and her resume is attached for your review, and also it has a list of all the items that she is responsible for. It's an interesting list of responsibilities that is very varied in many different areas.
I was amazed at all the things she does.
Yeah. So the Personnel Committee met and voted unanimously to recommend Christine for the position of Office Manager for
In
the Fire
addition to
Department.
yourself, who's the Personnel Committee?
Personnel Committee is David and Terry and Beth.
Thank you.
So that's the request for the Board of Selectmen. She has been working on a part-time temporary basis
Correct.
for us so far, and working out well so far, I take it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Training her.
Yeah, we've had, also have had, it's been very positive working, and she's been working out great so far, so.
Anybody have any questions for Chief? Okay. So I don't have the motion as to salary, so
Yeah.
maybe David, you want to make the motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we hire, what's her name?
Christine Del Valle.
Christine Della Valle, for fire department office manager. And
The beginning date is full-time. When will be full-time?
Starting tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay.
Yeah.
Beginning date 5:30 and the salary?
$26.44 an hour.
$26.44 an hour. Second. Okay, thank you. Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I need Mr. Weiner back. Thank you. Is he around?
I'll get them.
Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda is to receive a request from Christina and Oliver Holland at 48 Center Road property off Center Farm regarding the town's conservation and historic preservation easement and action as appropriate. And I'll turn this over to Attorney Weiner.
So I thought the homeowner was coming.
Yes, she's here.
She is here. Ah, there she is. Okay.
Come on in. Have a seat at the hot seat there. Is it raining out?
Just lightly.
It's good for farms.
What's that?
It's good for farms to have rain.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but.
So maybe you can explain what your proposal is, what you want to do, and then we'll go into the other parts.
Sure. So there are a few activities that we would like to do on the farm, and they've mostly been developed in conjunction with the USDA NRCS as part of our farm conservation plan. They have different types of programs that enhance conservation efforts and also promote farming, and so I'm eligible for those programs. And as part of that, we'd like to be putting in a deer fence, obviously, so we can protect our cropland from deer. We have lots, which is great, but not if they eat my lettuces. Also putting in an agricultural well. We have a well that is pre-1970, and it is not adequate to be able to irrigate the land with. We have looked into getting access to the town water, but since it's across Center Road, which is a Connecticut state highway, it's pretty cost neutral, depending, or comparing the well and the town water. And for agriculture, it would be nice to have a well. And then the final thing is a high tunnel, which is one of these plastic semi-permanent, it doesn't have a foundation, but I do hope it will be there for at least 6 years. Greenhouse structure, and that is going to be located in a section of our property which is furthest from the road, and hopefully will be least seen. Massaro has, I believe, 6 or 8 of them, and they've also participated in the USDA NRCS program to have a cost share to put those up.
So under the conservation easement, which I'm sure you've all read every single word of, Woodbridge, the town, has a conservation easement is on that property. We paid some money for it many, many years ago, together with a smaller share in the Woodbridge Parks Association and the Historical Society. So anytime there's a change to any of that property, it has to be consistent with the conservation easement that's in effect, and the town has to make a decision as to whether it is consistent and approve it or disapprove it. I've been talking to a lawyer for the Parks Association. His name is Brenton Elliott, and the Parks Association has given consent to the request, and I have the letter here that I can give each of you later on. I don't have this. You don't have the second page. You just made a bunch of copies. Oh, it's on the back. Okay, very good. Okay, so here's a copy of their consent. I have not heard from the Historical Society as to whether they have reviewed this and consent. Do you have any update on that?
They have given us verbal consent, and I thought they were going to give that in person in a meeting to Beth Heller. Did they do that?
So we mentioned it when we met with them on another subject, and they said it's subject to the Board of Selectmen's action. So taking action, they'll probably put it in writing after that.
Right. I think that We sort of verbally did.
So we have no, this
I
is
don't
all,
think they have a problem.
this is all subject to their formal agreement, and I assume that they're going to consent, so we will get that. So all three entities that have the opportunity to weigh in on the request certainly appear to be, well, Parks and Historical Side appear to be in favor, and now it's up to the Board of Selectmen to make a decision on the request. I reviewed the easement. It is consistent with the easement, as Attorney Elliott said in his letter. There doesn't seem to be anything that's inappropriate and that will detract from the historical nature of the building or the surrounding property. And we are always wanting to encourage farming and agriculture, and this is what that is. So I leave it up to the board now for discussion.
I'll make a motion just to get the discussion started that we approve the request from Christina and Oliver Holden at 48 Center Road, property off Center Farm, regarding the town's conservation and historic preservation easement, as described by herself this evening. And to add to that, she would also he and she would require, get all necessary permits from the various departments. I'll just add that to the motion.
And you've already been working on that with our building department, right?
I've inquired about what permits I need,
Okay,
but until
right.
I had this, I
Any
haven't actually submitted
Any
an
consent that the
application.
board gives, if they give consent, it'll be subject to you getting those
Okay.
permits.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Christina or discussion?
Do you have any idea how deep that well is going to have to be?
I've been talking to a few different well drillers, and they say that I should be planning on at least 300 feet.
Really?
Based on, I guess, a few wells down Pease Road. I've looked into getting a pounded well, which is just a different kind of mechanism, which supposedly opens up fractures, and usually those wells are much shallower. And so I was originally kind of leaning in that direction, but the USDA geologist who was consulting on this NRCS project seemed to think that our geology wasn't as conducive to that. So I guess...
How deep is the other well on your property, man?
I don't know. There's nothing on record. I've looked at the Quinnipiac Valley records. And
nobody's measured it. I was just curious.
Yeah. Okay. All we know is that it was pre-1970 because that, or 1967 or something, which is when the all records were kept.
There's a benefit you mentioned with going with the well versus town water?
The benefit is mostly that we would have the non-metered, we wouldn't pay rates. We use it judiciously, of course, and part of the USDA grant is to keep a log of all of your water usage, and when you're using it for, I think, over the course of 3 years. So.
Any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Beth, you have
Oh, I have to
we
let
have a
him.
letter that we can review.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That Beth will sign.
Okay,
Here we go.
okay.
But I think, did everybody sign the call of the special town meeting? We signed it?
Yep,
We
I
did.
got it.
And June 10th, we have enough time to publish it 5 days before. We're all set. Great.
I didn't know this was coming.
And I'll file it with Steph tomorrow.
Stephanie, and put it on the signpost. Because everybody looks at that signpost well, at least
everybody
once a day.
does.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll sign it as soon as I read it fully. Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn? David second, Joe first. I don't know who did it. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you all.